Some women don't leave all at once. They leave in pieces: a late-night text, a brief moment of warmth, a promise that sounds real but never turns into anything solid. And because her attention never fully disappears, your hope never fully dies. That is what makes this so dangerous. You think you are holding on to love, but often you are only holding on to possibility. And over time, the confusion becomes so constant that you begin to mistake it for connection. Most men fall into the same painful belief. If she comes back, even a little, it must mean she still cares. But attention is not the same as intention. A woman can reopen the door without ever planning to truly step inside. That is how the trap works. Breadcrumbing feeds you small signals that feel much bigger than they really are. One message makes you overlook long silence. One gentle moment makes you excuse repeated absence. And before you notice it, you are no longer asking whether she is choosing you. You are only asking whether she still shows up. Psychology gives us a useful lens for understanding this pattern. When attention comes unpredictably, it can feel even more powerful than consistent affection, because the mind begins chasing the next moment of relief or reassurance. In modern dating, this often shows up as breadcrumbing, where the signals are small, the warmth is inconsistent, and the contact is just enough to keep hope alive without giving real clarity. That is why many men feel torn between logic and emotion. It is not always because the connection is truly deep. Sometimes it is because uncertainty is slowly training the heart to keep waiting for something that never fully arrives. The first sign is not that she vanishes. It is that she comes back at exactly the right moment. Not when she is ready to build something real, but when your silence starts to become distance. Just when you are beginning to let go, she sends something gentle enough to pull you back in. A message that feels intimate. A memory that feels meaningful. A sudden warmth that appears right before your detachment becomes complete. That is how breadcrumbing keeps its power. It does not give you enough to fulfill you. It gives you just enough to stop you from leaving. The second sign is that her words create closeness, but her actions never create structure. She can say she misses you, yet avoid making a real plan. She can sound affectionate, yet stay strangely unavailable when clarity is needed. The connection feels strongest in suggestion, not in reality. The dream feels vivid, but the relationship never becomes solid. You are invited to feel deeply, but never invited to stand on firm ground. Then there is the subtler sign, and this is where many men get trapped. You start judging her interest by intensity instead of consistency. Because when she does appear, she appears strongly. Her attention feels personal, rare, and emotionally loaded. For a moment, it feels like everything is finally making sense. But the high never lasts. She fades again, and you are left replaying the moment, trying to decide whether it was real or only temporary. In a healthy bond, peace usually grows. In breadcrumbing, confusion becomes normal. Another sign is that you begin doing the emotional interpretation for both of you. You explain her silence. You excuse her contradictions. You turn a lack of effort into hidden meaning. Instead of asking what her behavior is doing to your peace, you keep asking what she might have meant. This is one of the most exhausting parts of the pattern. The uncertainty hurts so much that the mind would rather invent hope than face reality. That is why the cycle survives. There is also the way she keeps the connection alive without letting it mature. She may return with nostalgia, softness, or curiosity, but the interaction rarely moves toward commitment, accountability, or a real decision. It stays suspended in the middle. You are not close enough to feel secure, but not far enough to feel free. That middle space is where breadcrumbing becomes powerful. It turns emotional ambiguity into a place you keep living inside. And if this kind of psychology feels familiar, subscribe to the channel and share in the comments which mixed signal is the hardest to walk away from. Sometimes the first step toward clarity is simply naming what has been happening to you. One of the clearest signs of all is that your hope starts depending on exceptions instead of the overall pattern. One kind text becomes proof. One late-night confession becomes proof. One almost plan becomes proof. But no relationship can survive on emotional highlights alone. If the pattern always returns to uncertainty, then uncertainty is not a mistake. It is the pattern itself. And finally, pay attention to what this does to your sense of self. The pain of breadcrumbing is not only her inconsistency. It is the way that inconsistency slowly trains you to betray your own need for clarity. You become more patient than honest, more hopeful than observant, and more loyal to possibility than to reality. That is why this hurts so deeply. It does not only delay an answer, it can make a man forget that being truly chosen should feel clearer than this. And this is the moment many men finally understand the truth. She was never asking you to trust in real love. She was asking you to live on broken pieces of it and somehow call that enough. The hardest truth is not simply that she gave you too little. It is that you kept trying to make too little feel like enough. You kept reading warmth as devotion, return as real intention, and fragments as proof that something whole was still possible. But being truly chosen should never feel like emotional archaeology. You should not have to search through silence for meaning or survive on rare moments just to convince yourself the connection is real. When a woman genuinely wants to build something with you, clarity does not appear by accident. It starts revealing itself through rhythm, effort, and direction. So if this pattern has exhausted you, stop asking whether her crumbs were sincere. Ask yourself why you ever felt forced to call crumbs love. That is where freedom begins. Not when she finally explains herself, not when one last message arrives, but when you stop bargaining against your own need for peace. Some endings do not start with goodbye. They start with vision. The moment you see the pattern clearly, it loses some of its power. And the moment you stop begging uncertainty to become commitment, you begin returning to yourself.